Scorpion. Scorpion is one of the earliest confirmed antagonists tied to Brand New Day, and his presence connects directly back to the MCU's street-level roots. Mac Gargan first appeared in Spider-Man: Homecoming as a small-time criminal involved in the black market weapons trade that followed the Battle of New York. In the comics, he becomes Scorpion after J. Jonah Jameson funds an experiment designed specifically to create a living weapon capable of defeating Spider-Man. That transformation gives him enhanced strength, durability, and a mechanical tail built for both combat and intimidation. What makes Scorpion important in a longer narrative is that he is not just another villain of the week. He represents a personal obsession with Spider-Man that grows over time. In a story like Brand New Day, that obsession can evolve into something more dangerous, especially if Peter Parker is already isolated and without support. Tombstone. Tombstone brings a very different kind of threat compared to costume-wearing villains. Lonnie Lincoln is a crime boss who rises through the ranks of New York's underworld using a combination of intelligence, brutality, and fear. In the comics, his albinism and chemically altered body give him an intimidating, almost supernatural appearance, but his real power comes from influence rather than powers. He controls gangs, money flows, and territory, which makes him far more grounded than cosmic-level threats. His role in Brand New Day points toward a version of Spider-Man's world where crime is organized, structured, and deeply embedded in the city itself. Instead of stopping an alien invasion or multiversal event, Peter would be dealing with systems of corruption that cannot be defeated with a single punch. The Punisher. The Punisher introduces one of the most important moral conflicts in any Spider-Man story. Frank Castle is not a villain in the traditional sense, but his methods place him in direct opposition to Peter Parker's core beliefs. After losing his family to violent crime, Frank dedicates his life to eliminating criminals permanently. In contrast, Spider-Man operates on the principle that people deserve a chance to change, even after they do terrible things. When both characters target the same criminal networks, conflict becomes unavoidable. In a story like Brand New Day, this dynamic could be explored in a grounded way, where the disagreement is not just physical, but philosophical. Frank represents final judgment, while Peter represents restraint and responsibility, and neither one is willing to fully compromise. Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative is one of the most interesting rumored additions because he blends crime drama with psychological manipulation. In his civilian identity, Martin Lee runs a charity shelter called Feast, which gives him a public image of compassion and generosity. Secretly, he operates as Mr. Negative, a crime lord with the ability to corrupt others using dark energy. This duality creates a character who exists in two completely different moral spaces at once. In the Spider-Man video game storyline, his corruption powers are not just physical but emotional, turning allies into enemies and distorting trust. If adapted into Brand New Day, he would naturally fit into a story where Peter is isolated and vulnerable, because his biggest weapon is not strength but influence over people's emotions and decisions. Kingpin. Kingpin represents the idea that true power in New York does not always come from superhuman abilities. Wilson Fisk is a crime lord who operates through wealth, politics, and intimidation. In recent MCU appearances, he has already been established as a growing force in the criminal underworld, especially in stories connected to Daredevil and street-level heroes. What makes Kingpin so dangerous is his patience. He does not rush into conflict unless it benefits him strategically. Instead, he builds networks of control that allow him to influence entire cities without revealing himself as the source. In a Spider-Man-focused story, his presence would suggest that the events of Brand New Day are part of something larger, where multiple villains are either directly or indirectly connected to his influence. The Symbiote. The Symbiote represents a completely different kind of danger because it does not behave like a normal villain. After the events of No Way Home, a small piece of the Venom symbiote was left behind in the MCU. In comic history, this alien organism bonds with its host and amplifies their physical abilities, while also influencing their emotions and aggression. For Peter Parker, that means increased strength, but also a growing loss of control over his impulses. What makes the symbiote storyline so enduring is that it turns Spider-Man's greatest strengths into weaknesses. His responsibility, compassion, and restraint begin to fade as the bond grows stronger. In a film like Brand New Day, even a small introduction of this concept would signal a deeper psychological struggle rather than just another external fight. Black Cat. Black Cat may not be a traditional villain, but she is one of the most compelling characters who could fit naturally into Brand New Day. Felicia Hardy is a master thief with exceptional agility, acrobatic skills, and years of experience pulling off impossible heists. Unlike Spider-Man, she often lives by her own moral code, stealing from criminals or wealthy targets, while staying one step ahead of the law. Throughout Marvel Comics, her relationship with Peter Parker has constantly shifted between ally, rival, and romantic interest, making her one of the most unpredictable figures in his life. Black Cat would align perfectly with the direction of Brand New Day because Peter has lost everyone who once knew him. With MJ and Ned no longer remembering who he is, Peter is beginning a completely new chapter. That creates the ideal opportunity for Felicia Hardy to enter his life. Unlike Peter's previous relationships, Black Cat is usually drawn to Spider-Man himself rather than the man behind the mask. That dynamic would be especially meaningful now, since Peter has sacrificed his personal identity to protect the people he loves. Their relationship could challenge Peter emotionally, forcing him to decide whether he wants to rebuild a normal life or embrace life as Spider-Man completely. At the same time, Black Cat's connections to New York's criminal underworld could naturally pull Peter deeper into the conflicts surrounding Tombstone, Scorpion, and other street-level villains. Rhino. Rhino is another classic Spider-Man villain who would fit well within the grounded action of Brand New Day. Alexei Sitsevich begins as a small-time criminal before volunteering for dangerous experiments that permanently bond an incredibly durable suit to his body. The transformation grants him overwhelming strength, nearly impenetrable skin, and enough raw power to smash through buildings, vehicles, and almost anything standing in his way. Unlike highly intelligent villains who rely on complicated schemes, Rhino is often used as the unstoppable force in a larger criminal operation. His greatest advantage is his sheer physical presence. Spider-Man cannot simply overpower him, forcing Peter to rely on quick thinking, agility, and creative problem-solving instead of brute strength. That balance has made Rhino one of Spider-Man's most recognizable opponents for decades. Within Brand New Day, Rhino could serve as the muscle behind New York's expanding criminal organizations. If Tombstone is controlling the city's underworld, Rhino could become the enforcer sent to eliminate anyone who gets in the way. This would give Peter intense action sequences while reinforcing the film's street-level focus. Rather than fighting cosmic threats, Spider-Man would once again be protecting neighborhoods from dangerous criminals whose actions have immediate consequences for everyday people. Jackal. Jackal could introduce a completely different layer to the story by bringing science and psychological conflict into Peter Parker's already fragile life. Known in the comics as Professor Miles Warren, Jackal is a brilliant geneticist whose obsession with Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy eventually drives him into madness. His experiments with cloning become some of the most controversial and emotionally complex storylines in Spider-Man history, forcing Peter to question his own identity and the people around him. Although Jackal has not been officially confirmed for Brand New Day, many fans believe he would be an excellent fit because of the themes already surrounding Peter's new beginning. After sacrificing his identity in No Way Home, Peter is struggling to figure out who he is without the people who once defined his life. Jackal's obsession with recreating and manipulating human life mirrors that search for identity in a disturbing way. Instead of simply trying to defeat Spider-Man physically, Jackal attacks the very idea of who Peter Parker is. His scientific expertise could also connect naturally to other elements of the story, allowing Marvel to introduce advanced genetic research, experimental technology, or future plotlines without shifting away from the grounded tone. Even if he operates behind the scenes for most of the film, Jackal could quietly become the mastermind whose experiments create problems that extend far beyond Brand New Day, setting up future Spider-Man stories while perfectly matching the film's themes of loss, identity, and new beginnings.
It's over. Go home.